Thanks for joining us Behind the Frontline, a podcast providing timeless solutions to everyday workforce and workplace challenges. Frontline Training Solutions is an express employment professionals company, strategically placed between the workplace and the workforce with professionals standing by, ready to combat your unique challenges. Learn more about what we do at frontlineon.com. Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Frontline with Frontline Training Solutions. And we are a solutions-focused podcast. And today is going to be a little bit different. I'm just sitting in the studio today with Nathan Leaman, who's no stranger to the podcast. He's president of Frontline Training Solutions. And Nathan, for anyone just tuning in, maybe for the first time, how would you describe what Frontline Training Solutions does in just a sentence or two?
Yeah, so Frontline Training Solutions, really a full-service training, consulting, and coaching company. And we really focus on the most pressing people-related challenges organizations are facing today. So that might show up in the need to help develop frontline leaders. It could show up in helping an organization identify who those leaders should be in the future and build a succession planning process. And sometimes we're sitting down with CEOs and presidents to coach. So really wrapping all that around this idea of helping an organization achieve its goals through the people that it employs.
That's so good. And, you know, our tagline at Frontline is we develop people, we inspire growth, and we unlock potential.
Right.
We say that a lot. So it's been kind of a big year at Frontline.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been all over the map.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a snapshot of what we have been up to over the last 12 months?
Yeah, it has been. It's been a crazy ride even over the last 2-3 years. You know, organizations have so many different challenges. We've done so much in our webinars and even on our podcast talking about the demographic challenges that are facing organizations. And so, you know, we're on the front lines of that work and helping companies decide how they want to proceed or be and show up for their employees. We talk about this idea of being an employer of choice, and that means a lot of different things in different industries and for different organizations. So we're really trying to help them navigate that. And so, you know, some of the things that we're seeing, I would say this year especially, we've seen an explosion in interest in our new leader training programs. And we have 2 programs. One is called Supervisor Boot Camp, which is just on fire right now. We're getting 2 or 3 requests a week from companies around the country to help develop this frontline leader in an operation or manufacturing setting. Similarly, our Leadership Foundations program, it's really a similar program, but really focused on the office or professional environment. It's like, I'm leading people for the first time. What does this mean? And I think it's driven by a couple of things. One, the turnover of the baby boom generation and folks just deselecting and moving out of leadership roles for a lot of different reasons. And also the fact that there's a lot of resistance to even going into leadership roles. You know, you traditionally see the younger folks in the workplace starting to step into those roles, and a lot of them are like, no, thank you. Not interested.
Not for me.
It's not for me. I've seen how it's been done. I've seen how other people model it, and that's not me. And so a lot of them are deselecting themselves. And so organizations are in this spot, kind of this pickle, as it were. They have a need, and it's increasingly hard to find people to fill that need. And then once you do find somebody, you do want to do everything you can to support them and give them the tools to be successful. That's, I think, why Supervisor Boot Camp and Leadership Foundations are so popular right now, is because they're recognizing we need to develop these people. It's not enough just to give them the promotion, and it comes with an increase in pay or whatever, but that's not worth it long term. They need the tools to be successful. So that's been a big trend that we are seeing, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. Yeah.
So what I love most about our leadership training courses is really it kind of focuses on one day, Friday, you're individual contributor.
Yeah.
And then Monday, like you said, you're leading people.
Yeah.
And possibly for the first time. And, you know, one of the concepts that are thrown around in our training is this idea of the balcony and the dance floor, which we just put out a blog post online as well. Please go read that. It kind of explains what that is. And that's an organizational challenge. There's other organizational challenges that we have been asked to help solve, that other companies are facing with. Maybe there's something that you're listening to right now, and it's a question or challenge that's keeping you up at night. What kinds of organizational challenges like that does Frontline specialize in solving?
Yeah. So I think talent, I'll throw this idea of talent management out there. Now, talent management might not mean anything to some people right off the bat, but basically I think of talent management, it's what are you doing to identify key talent and develop them so they stay and you're retaining them long-term. They feel like they can have a long-term career. And that shows itself in things like succession planning. It shows itself in creating effective development plans. A lot of folks in your and the organizations out there want a career. They want to understand what's the path for me. And it's not always a linear path. It always used to be kind of, start at level 1 and go to level 2 and level 3, and maybe there's a senior level. Now we're seeing a lot more interest in kind of this, I want to try a lot of different things. Is this a place that gives me the opportunity to do that? And so Frontline is working with organizations around all of those things. So how do you know if somebody is someone that you would want to invest in for leadership down the road? How do you create the flexibility required to be able to move between functions without losing them? Is it better to take somebody who's a known entity and has done a nice job, understands your organization, and they're in marketing now, but they want to go into sales or they want to go into IT? Is it better to do that? You're going to have to develop them on sales and IT, but they like the place and they're a fit with the organization. So how do you create some of that? I was talking yesterday with a client of ours who was also looking at, just compensation models. Like, what do you do with somebody that's well penetrated into their compensation range, meaning they're paid at the very high end of what their job pays because they've been around a long time, they're a really good performer. You want to continue to recognize them. And so how do we come alongside and give them some ideas around how to do that? That might require building another job level. It just might require doing some creative things with compensation. But what we're finding is that HR and organizational leaders just need a sounding board, someone that they can call and talk to and say, hey, what do you think about this? So, all those things kind of related to this idea of how you manage your talent well, because at the end of the day, there's not enough people out there long term. So what you're doing to create an environment where people stay and thrive and feel like they can have a career is going to help you more than almost anything else long term.
So, yeah, I fully agree with everything you just said. Speaking of that, and then the whole retention issue, and are you seeing any other patterns in some of the companies that we're talking to, especially struggling? We saw a lot of different challenges coming post-COVID to, even 2024. And we just have recently done a string of webinars on just kind of the future of the talent crisis. What other patterns are you seeing in some of these conversations we're having?
Yeah, so I think the long term is bleak as far as the data from a demographic standpoint. And so organizations are saying we can't just give it lip service for a long time. We need to develop our people, and we believe in developing our people. And well, everybody was saying that. Of course you're going to say that, right? Now what we're seeing is they realize they can't just say it. They've got to actually do it. And they realize that a lot of the power of the employee-employer dynamic rests in the employees. They've got a whole lot of ways that they can tell their story about their own experiences that, companies don't control. They also if they're interested in what's next, they have the ability to go out and look because somebody's looking, right, for them. And the more they have the opportunity to move around or do things remotely, all that potentially just increases the likelihood that if they're disgruntled, they're going to go find something. And so I think, again, companies are looking at creative ways to retain, creative ways to develop and grow people. It's not, I think the biggest trend that I've seen is it's no longer a nice thing to have and lip service being treated. It's mission critical now. Like, if you're not doing this work of creating an environment where people can have those careers and work under really good leadership and have the tools to develop and grow, they're going to go somewhere else, and your organization is going to disappear because you haven't invested in the right thing. And I honestly think we're going to see a massive shift in the workplace between companies that have figured that equation out and those that haven't. And it's going to be pretty clear who wins not too long from now.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it's eye-opening, and just even thinking about retention and what that does to the bottom line. I mean, we're going to do a webinar here soon called The Cost of Bad Leadership, where, how much are you costing your company by not training the leaders that you have to be good people leaders?
Well, it's a great point, because organizations sometimes resist the training piece because of the cost associated with it. It's not cheap. It's not just the cost of the training, right? We do these trainings and we can do them on site, or we have open enrollment where anybody from the public can attend. And they're like, oh, okay, there's a cost associated with that. Well, I'm famous for saying to people, you don't get to make a cost-free decision.
That's true.
You're going to pay a cost if you do that or if you don't. It's just, are you going to pay it now or are you going to pay it later? Are you going to control the cost, or is the cost going to control you down the road? And so, helping organization understand that it's not a matter of if, it's when. So yeah, I think when we talk about the cost of bad leadership, we're going to talk about real dollars and cents. And you can tell that story. I mean, you can do the equations and figure out what it's actually costing you when you have increased turnover because your frontline leader doesn't engage people and doesn't create a safe environment for them, or doesn't give them the support they need to develop, just assumes they can do the task right away without any training. All of that has that downstream cost impact. And so you're going to pay it now, you're going to pay it later. You don't get to not pay it,
That's so true. With all that said as well, maybe you could share a story or an example of when we as Frontline stepped into a difficult situation at a company and helped turn it around.
Yeah. I think of an organization that, it wasn't like dire straits kind of situation, but they had a really interesting challenge around how they did their onboarding program. They had a style and an approach they had done for years, and they really reached out to Frontline to say, can we revisit this? Intuitively, we know we need to do something different. So the first thing we did is we actually said, absolutely, can we survey people in your organization that have gone through the onboarding process recently? Let's find out what's working. I mean, we can make all sorts of assumptions about, okay, this is broken or that's broken, but let's ask the people that actually went through it, what's working, what's not working, and what would you do differently? And then I said, let's also survey the people involved in the onboarding program internally. So the people who are facilitating the onboarding, who are managing it, who are presenting as part of the onboarding. Same kind of deal. What's working? Where are you stuck? What should we do differently? And so we got a lot of data from that, and it gave us good insights into needing to change fundamentally the structure of it. It was a little bit too loose and not as defined as it needed to be. And there was an opportunity to drive even more community in the organization. So, you're new to an organization, doing an effective onboarding helps you create relationships and build connections. And they were just missing some of that in the actual process they had. The interesting thing about that, Nic, is that all the data they needed to fix the problem was inside the organization. Like Frontline came along, we helped facilitate a process to draw that information out. Yes, we added some best practice, and these are things you should consider. Ultimately, they're going to make the decision about what makes the most sense for them. But at the end of the day, sometimes that's what organizations need. And because everybody's so busy right now,
right,
they just might need that third party, more objective perspective to come in and say, hey, let's think about this. And the more we collaborate with an organization to solve their problem, the more likely it's going to sustain long term. If we go in and just do everything on our own, say, do this, do that, it's going to fall apart the second we leave.
Right. It takes the company needing to take accountability for the things that we're helping point out.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's an example of it's kind of a small project, but it highlights some really nice things about how we think about the work. We believe, there's this book called You Already Know How to Be Great by Alan Fine. He developed a coaching philosophy called Inside Out Coaching. Love it. I got certified in it, facilitated a lot in previous life. But the question or the statement that always jumped out to me from what he shared is, and I don't know if it's unique to Alan, but this is the first time I heard it. It's not that people don't know what to do most of the time. It's that people don't do what they know. And so an organization, that means the answer is in the individual or in the organization. It's very much how we would approach a coaching conversation too. Our job is to draw out solutions from the individual. And when appropriate, we'll bring our expertise and our experience to bear and say, you should be considering these things. But at the end of the day, they've got to decide if it makes sense for them. And it's got to be done in a way that's going to ultimately be sustainable when Frontline is not there to hold their hands through it.
Right. And we have a lot of great, really good coaching resources on our website. We have trainings, we have podcasts and blogs and webinars and all sorts of things. With coaching, we have a lot of other specialties and we just have a unique team. And one of the things I love about our team is that any given week, we've got one out in California. Yeah. We've got one out in Virginia. We've got one in Wyoming. We have one in Oklahoma.
That's right.
And I feel like, which I love, we're just really moving some mountains when it comes to organizational challenges. Maybe you could talk a little bit about our team and just what kind of expertise and specialties do we have under our roof?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about the team, Nick, and I'm talking like delivery focused individuals, we have, of course, operational support people.
It's me.
Kind of behind the scenes folks, very much in front of the scenes folks. But when we're talking about delivery people that actually deliver training or do the consulting and coaching work, we really think about it from a perspective of we try to look at their experience and say, hey, this is the area that we want them to be focused on. So we have people that are specialists in the human resources area. That's where they spent most of their career. That's what they really love to do and are focused on. Some are deep kind of employment law, labor relations experts. Some specialize in FMLA and ADA management. God bless them, because that's not necessarily an easy thing to keep up with, even what the regulations say and how you have to do it and build the processes to support it. Others are more specialists in leadership development. And so they have a long history in creating and implementing leadership programs, training programs, talent management and organizational development. And of course, organizational development can mean a lot of things, but consulting really on projects related to organizational effectiveness. And so that's how we think about our team. We look at the individuals and their past and their experience, and we start to kind of frame that up. And we look at matching the requests that come in from clients with this expertise. So I like to say, and I guess I would highlight, they've all been there, done that. They've all been inside of organizations, many, many large organizations, managing these processes, building these tools internal to organizations. So I think it's a key differentiator. Thing I've been saying lately is we don't hire professional trainers. We hire professionals who can train. So we've got individuals.
Differentiation, yeah.
It is. So we've got individuals who have 30 years in manufacturing and operations leadership. They didn't probably think for most of their career they would ever be doing training, but they have a passion for helping frontline leaders grow and develop, or driving connection between multiple layers of operations leadership, so everybody's speaking the same language and on the same page. So that individual, huge experience in managing operations, comes along later in their career and starts doing a lot of training, brings that practical aspect to the table. Same thing on the HR side, same thing on the organizational development side. They've all been in the trenches. We have a video that we share sometimes from Frontline, and you had that line in there where from people who've been in your shoes, consulting services or something like that, from people who've been in your shoes. And that's exactly right. We have people who know what it's like to be inside organizations developing these tools. We're working on a pretty large potential gig right now, and Ryan has been talking about, hey, we are We want to be an extension of your internal L&D team, your learning and development team. And that's exactly how we look at it. Some organizations, I think they've got their models and their tools, and they're like, we know best here, go do this. We've got our models and tools, but we also want to make sure that it's going to live beyond the frontline interaction. So let's build something together, and every one of our folks are going to be very collaborative in that way.
Yeah, and it has to make sense for the company that we're giving it to.
Yeah.
I say that's a major thing that we're different from other providers in this space. There's lots of training and development providers out there, lots of really talented and successful companies who are doing what we do. But the differentiation, like Nathan pointed out, I think is the fact that we have been where they have been. And I love that you shared that. Let's just say when a client comes to us and they say, hey, Nathan, we're struggling with our leadership pipeline, or our teams just aren't communicating well right now. Where do we even start? What does that onboarding process look like for a new client?
Yeah. Well, those are the exact things that we get. Hey, we want leadership development for our leaders, or we want customer service training. In fact, I was looking at one right before I came in. It was somebody that wanted hospitality and customer service training. For I think it's a food service organization. So anyway, that's all you get, right? And then it's like, okay, I want to understand this. I want to unpack this. So really, what you should expect is that we're going to want to talk. And I know that sometimes people are just like, just tell us what you do, and then we'll decide. And we can do that occasionally. We're like, okay, here's what we do. But most of the time, we find that what works best is let's have a conversation. Let's give us a chance to ask a few questions so we better understand what you're looking for. When you say you want to develop leaders, all sorts of questions come to mind. Okay, what level of leader? Because that matters. If it's a brand new leader, that means one thing. If it's somebody that's been a leader for 10 years, that's something else.
Or C-suite leadership, yeah.
Correct. When you say you want to grow leadership skills, I want to know, well, what does that mean to you? What is leadership to you? And so many organizations have defined that, and that helps us then build the right kind of approach. Many organizations have never been asked that question before. They're just like, well, we want to be good leaders. Okay, well, what does that mean in your setting? There are things that are generally true, right? When we think about leadership, we think about leadership is fundamentally what happens when somebody figures out how to balance connection and relationship with challenge and productivity. That's how we think about leadership. And that's going to be true largely across every industry. You got to be able to do both, right? But at the same time, if you're an architecture firm, you're a chicken restaurant, you're a big paper company, whatever, those are all going to be different industries and different expectations. And so, we might be saying, hey, help us understand what you even mean by leadership. That's really important for us. But back to your question, we're going to ask a lot of questions. We're going to try to get to the core issue, define things really, really clearly before we start any kind of solutioning. It's like, it's not appropriate to go into solutions until you really understand the audience, the challenges, what are you seeing, what are you experiencing, what do you want to change, and what do you want to be different after the intervention.
Right. And when it comes to kind of that onboarding process of figuring out what the best solution might be, we love assessments at Frontline Training Solutions. We're certified.
They can be really helpful.
A lot of assessments, right? So when it comes down to kind of approaching a solution or an assessment, maybe you could just kind of describe some of the assessments that we are qualified to give.
We wouldn't be a good training consulting company and coaching company if we didn't have our assessments, right? So, when I think about assessments, I think we actually did a podcast even on this too. People could dig into that. But assessments can be used in the selection process to help you identify the right people for a role. So we have access to assessments that help with that. Assessments are really good for identifying personality traits and characteristics to create self-awareness. We use the DISC, for instance, for a behavior-based kind of tool that helps you understand how do you likely come across to people. assessments from a development perspective could also be like 360-degree assessments, which is intended to really give you a perspective of the team around you, so that you're not just looking at what do I think about myself, but you're actually looking at what is my reputation? How am I coming across to other people? That's really important to know. We embed our assessments into many of our leadership programs. In fact, I'm trying to think, most of our leadership programs have assessments built into them, and we use assessments in also kind of one-off training and emotional intelligence. We've recently started using the 6 types of working genius from Lencioni's organization, just as a way to create a dialogue and conversation. That's ultimately what assessments can do the best, is create a similar understanding and language around various topics, so that you could talk to each other and say, oh, that's why I'm experiencing this. That's why I've seen this in you before, or that's why you come across, or I come across that way. So it's really about awareness and increasing both self and others' awareness.
Right. And I know we received this question one time in a webinar. Is there one assessment that is a one size fits all?
Yeah.
We know the answer to that is not really no. And what I love most about the assessments, that we don't just implement it as part of our training and give them to companies. Like, we do them ourselves. I've been here for 5 years, and I've done the EQI 2.0. I've done Strengths Finder. I've done DISC. I've done Working Genius. And recently
Viro B today.
Viro B today. Literally, yeah. So
exactly.
yeah, we believe in them,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Yeah. So what excites you most about where Frontline might be heading? Like, can you give us a little preview of maybe some of the things that are on the horizon?
Yeah. So I'm amazed every day, every week and every day about the reach that Frontline is having. It's a testament, I think, to a lot of the work you've done from our webinars, our podcasts, our brand, search engine optimization, SEO. People are just finding us. And so I'm amazed by that. And what I think is just on the horizon for us is continuing to grow our capacity to help clients, because they're going to continue to find us. As you know, you get that flywheel of SEO going, and it's just going to more and more come up to the top of mind for people. And so are we prepared to help support that? That's why we're growing our team. That's why I think we got 20 or so delivery folks now. I'd like to see us at 30 by the end of the year, maybe going into 2026, so that we have the capacity to meet the demand that we know is there. Another thing that's very exciting, and we haven't talked a lot about it here right now, but we are affiliated with Express Employment Professionals. It's a very important relationship to us. This company, Frontline, was born at the Express office here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And, there's 900 franchise locations globally that are becoming aware of who Frontline is and how Frontline can help them differentiate in their markets. Our partner Express offices are sharing our webinars and our podcasts and our blogs and social media and stuff.
Yeah, Specialized Recruiting Group too.
Recruiting Group. Both those two companies are helping us get the word out. And if there's one thing that I have definitely been kind of singing to our ownership about Frontline, is I'm not so worried about the sales side of things. The thing that keeps me up the most is when sales are really ramped up, making sure we have the right people in place, which is why we've had such a huge investment. We had, just last week, we had a handful of our newest team members in town from all over the country. Had somebody there from Charlotte, a couple of people from Wisconsin, some local folks coming into town to just be onboarded, understand who we are, get ready for the work, come together as a community. And we're just going to have to continue to do that so that we can expand as our reach and impact expands as well.
That's so good. And, we do a lot because we believe in a lot. We believe in the companies that we serve. Maybe someone's listening and they're thinking, God, I think we might need this. I think we might need a company like Frontline or Frontline to come in. I know we talked about this recently in another podcast. How can leaders know when it's the right time to bring in outside support, because sometimes we don't know a problem is a problem until it's too late.
Right. Yeah. So I think fostering that network is really, really important. I think in that podcast, we talked about how critical it is to make sure you're looking and understanding what's happening in the market. Benchmarking is what we like to call it, to understand, what are the tools and resources that are available. I think a great way to kind of educate yourself on that is through our webinars. You're going to see some fairly cutting edge and important information being shared regularly. It's a great way just to see what's on the landscape out there. It could start to make some connections for you back to what it is that you need. And then you have to decide, do I have that resource internally or do I not? Frontline, we specialize really mostly on that small to medium-sized organization that has not historically had an internal organizational development or leadership development team, but they've got all the same challenges. They've got all the same problems as the big dogs. They just haven't had the ability to have that team internally. So as you're growing and starting to experience some of those growing pains, that's a good sign to be thinking, okay, maybe I need to get another set of eyes on this. And that's the one thing I think that Frontline really tries to do very well. Yes, we like to sell our products and services, but we don't really push hard. What we want is to understand if we can help you. And in a conversation with us, we might learn that Frontline isn't the right resource, but we can help push you in the right direction or give you the right encouragement that, hey, it seems like you're on the right path. I can't tell you how many clients we've said, you know what, it sounds like you've got this underhand. I think you're thinking about the right way. You probably don't need us, but then at least they've had the opportunity to have a sounding board and get another person's perspective before just jumping into a big partnership or whatever. So
right.
I think that's kind of our approach. And I would just encourage, as you experience challenges in leadership or retention or all of that, even just having a conversation with somebody here can help you decide whether or not it's a resource that you need.
Yeah. And, I love what you just mentioned there too. It's for Frontline, it's not so much about making the sell. It's about making a difference.
That's right.
We really care and we want to make a difference in the company that you're serving in. And I also love that you talked about webinars. They are free.
Yeah.
We have a whole archive of past webinars. And, I think we hit 52 since we've launched them in 2020.
Yeah.
And so they are free. They are, you can get recertification credits if that is your thing. But if you heard anything that Nathan shared and you're like, yes, I want to contact you guys, go to our website, www.frontlineon.com. There's a little blue button in the top right where you can just contact us, or you can scroll the website and kind of look at some of the solutions that we have to offer and get in touch with us. Get in touch with us there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We'd love to help for sure. That's what we spend our time doing. And if you just need somebody to be a sounding board, bounce ideas off of, learn what might be new out there, please reach out.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us on The Frontline. We're going to see you next time.